Look at her clothes. She thinks she can stay here. The whispers turned to open laughter as the woman in worn jeans approached the gleaming reception desk of the majestic Grand Hotel. The receptionist's professional smile instantly transformed into a contemptuous smirk. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said with theatrical politeness, not even bothering to check his computer. "We're completely booked. Perhaps try the motel down the street. They have more suitable accommodations for someone like you." The cruel laughter grew louder. A wealthy woman in designer clothes stage whispered, "Security should stop these people at the door. This isn't a homeless shelter." The staff exchanged knowing glances as the humiliation unfolded in the opulent marble lobby, adorned with art pieces worth millions. Olivia Chen clutched her worn leather bag tighter, her warm amber eyes steady despite the burning shame. "I have a reservation," she said with quiet dignity. "The Skyline Suite, under Chen." What these laughing people didn't know, her husband was James Chen, the reclusive tech billionaire worth $42 billion. And by tomorrow morning, their mockery would cost them everything when he bought the entire hotel chain just to fire them all. "Perhaps you've confused us with another hotel," the receptionist, Bradley Wells, suggested with barely disguised contempt. His manicured fingers tapped at his keyboard with performative diligence. "I'm not seeing anything under that name," he said, his tone suggesting she'd made a mistake even being there. Behind Olivia, a line was forming. Wealthy guests shifted impatiently, their Louis Vuitton luggage and designer suits marking them as the hotel's preferred clientele. A young woman in a crimson blazer, Vanessa Hartwell, the assistant manager, glided over, her heels clicking authoritatively on the marble floor. "Is there a problem, Bradley?" she asked, her voice carrying just enough for nearby guests to hear. "This lady claims to have a reservation we can't locate," Bradley explained, emphasizing lady in a way that suggested the opposite. Vanessa's eyes performed the same dismissive scan, taking in Olivia's modest appearance with a slight curl of her perfectly painted lips. "I see," she said, not seeing at all. She turned to Olivia with practiced condescension. "Perhaps you've confused us with another hotel. The majestic Grand does have a rather selective booking policy." A silver-haired man in an expensive suit, waiting nearby with his equally well-dressed wife, chuckled. "Selective is right. These people need to understand some places aren't for everyone." His wife nodded, eyeing Olivia's sneakers like they were a personal insult. "Exactly, Richard. Standards must be maintained." Olivia's cheeks flushed slightly, but her voice remained steady. "My reservation was confirmed last week. Room 4501, the Skyline Suite." This detail caused Bradley and Vanessa to exchange quick glances. The Skyline Suite was one of their premium offerings, starting at $5,000 per night. Now they were certain this was either a mistake or some kind of scam. "Ma'am," Vanessa said, her patience visibly thinning, "that particular suite is reserved for our VIP guests. There's clearly been a misunderstanding." By now, other staff members had taken notice. A bellhop named Tyler leaned against his luggage cart, making no effort to hide his amusement. $10 says she thought this was a Motel 6, he stage whispered, to a nearby valet who snickered in response. A concierge named Diana approached, clipboard in hand, her expression a mixture of curiosity and disdain. "Is there an issue with this guest?" she asked, her eyes flickering over Olivia's simple ponytail. "Not for much longer," Vanessa replied with a tight smile. She turned back to Olivia, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "Listen, I don't know what you're trying to pull, but the Skyline Suite is currently occupied by a tech executive. Now, I'm going to have to ask you to leave before we call security." Olivia stood her ground, dignity intact despite the growing audience of judgmental stares. "Check again," she said simply. "The reservation is under Chen, Olivia Chen." Bradley made a show of typing the name again, his eye roll visible to everyone except Olivia. "Nothing," he declared triumphantly. "As we said, perhaps the budget across town would be more appropriate for your needs." This elicited more chuckles from the gathering crowd of staff and elite guests. Richard, the silver-haired man, checked his Rolex impatiently. "Some of us have legitimate reservations," he called out. "Could we move this along?" Vanessa's smile turned predatory. "Of course, Mr. Westfield. We value our real guests' time." She gestured subtly, and two security guards materialized, their dark suits and earpieces marking them as the enforcers of the hotel's exclusivity. "Ma'am, we'll need you to exit the premises," one said firmly, moving toward Olivia with practiced intimidation. The second guard reached for her worn leather bag. "Let me help you with that," he said, his tone making it clear this wasn't an offer. Olivia's calm finally cracked slightly. "Don't touch my belongings," she said, pulling her bag closer. The movement caused something to fall from its side pocket, a worn notebook with a peculiar logo embossed on its cover. Diana, the concierge, noticed it first, her eyes widening as she recognized the distinctive emblem of Chen Innovations, one of the world's most valuable tech companies. But before she could say anything, Bradley had already escalated the situation. "If you won't leave willingly, we'll have to escort you out," he announced loudly enough for the entire lobby to hear. Tyler, the bellhop, had pulled out his phone and was openly recording now. "This is gold," he whispered to the valet. "Homeless? Woman tries to scam the Majestic." Vanessa stepped closer to Olivia, her voice dripping with mock sympathy that cut deeper than outright cruelty. "Look, I understand times might be tough, but this isn't the way to solve your problems. There are shelters that can help people in your situation." The humiliation was complete. Every eye in the opulent lobby was fixed on Olivia, some amused, some disgusted, some simply grateful for the entertaining distraction. The security guards each took one of her arms, firm but careful not to use force that might later be deemed excessive. As they began to move her toward the revolving doors, Olivia finally spoke again, her voice quiet but clear. "I would like to speak with your general manager." This request brought fresh laughter from the staff. "I'm sure he'd be delighted to meet." "With you?" Bradley called after her sarcastically. "Right after his meeting with the Queen." Vanessa smiled coldly. "Mr. Hamilton only meets with individuals relevant to the Majestic's interests," she explained, as if to a child. "Not with people who waste our valuable time." A few guests had pulled out their phones, joining Tyler in recording the spectacle. Olivia could feel her heartbeat quickening, the weight of dozens of mocking eyes bearing down on her. For the first time since entering the hotel, her composure threatened to collapse entirely. She had faced judgment before, growing up in a working-class neighborhood, putting herself through college, even in the early days of dating James. But never this public, never this cruel. The security guards tightened their grip as they reached the doors. One leaned close to her ear. "Next time, know your place," he whispered, too quietly for others to hear. In that moment, something inside Olivia shifted. The hurt in her eyes hardened into resolve. She stopped resisting but straightened her back, lifting her chin slightly. The movement was subtle, but it transformed her entire presence. Even in defeat, she would not surrender her dignity. Diana, the concierge, was staring at the notebook on the floor, recognition slowly dawning on her face. She took a half step forward, then hesitated, glancing nervously between the notebook and Vanessa, too afraid to speak up, too uncertain to remain silent. The revolving doors began to turn, the gleaming glass ready to eject this unwanted intruder back onto the street. Through the transparent panels, a black town car could be seen pulling up. To the curb, its sleek lines and tinted windows radiating quiet power. The driver emerged, opening the rear door with practiced precision. A hushed anticipation fell over the scene, as if the very air had paused to witness what would happen next. Just as the security guards reached the massive glass doors, they swung open, and the atmosphere in the lobby suddenly shifted. A man in a simple but impeccably tailored black suit entered, his presence immediately commanding attention despite his understated appearance. At 40, James Chen carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had nothing to prove to anyone. His sharp eyes took in the scene in an instant, his wife being escorted out by security, the smirking staff, the entertained onlookers. The security guards froze, recognition dawning on their faces. James Chen rarely appeared in public or in the media, but his few photographs were enough for them to know exactly who had just walked into their lobby. Behind him, an elegant woman in a business suit hurried to keep pace, her tablet clutched tightly as if it contained state secrets. "Mr. Chen," she murmured, "your meeting with the investment team is in 20 minutes. James nodded briefly to his assistant but didn't take his eyes off Olivia. "What's happening here?" he asked, his voice controlled, but with an edge that made everyone in earshot straighten involuntarily. Olivia met his gaze, her composure recovered. "A misunderstanding about our reservation," she said simply, neither asking for rescue nor showing weakness. Bradley's face had drained of color. Vanessa stood paralyzed, her mind racing to connect the dots between this simple woman and one of the world's most elusive billionaires. Tyler had stopped recording, his phone hanging forgotten at his side. Richard Westfield and his wife had suddenly found the marble floor fascinating, avoiding eye contact with anyone involved in the scene. James approached the security guards, who immediately released Olivia's arms and stepped back. "You're handling reservations personally now?" he asked them, his tone mild but his eyes hard. They stammered apologies and retreated, leaving Vanessa to step forward. Her customer service smile switched to its highest wattage. "Mr. Chen." "What?" "An unexpected honor. We had no idea you were joining us today. There seems to have been a misunderstanding with your companion's check-in process." "My wife," James corrected quietly, the two words falling like stones in the silent lobby. "Olivia Chen. My wife of 8 years." Each word was measured, precise, and devastating to everyone who had participated in her humiliation. Bradley had begun frantically typing at his computer, sweat beading on his forehead. "The reservation. It's right here, of course. Chen Skyline Suite, 3 nights. A technical error must have hidden it from our system earlier." James didn't acknowledge Bradley's desperate backpedaling. Instead, he turned to his assistant. "Sarah, get Marcus Hamilton on the phone. Now." The name of the general manager sent a visible shudder through the staff. Sarah nodded and stepped aside, speaking quietly but urgently into her phone. James then addressed the lobby at large, his voice calm but carrying to every corner. "My wife arrived ahead of me to prepare for our anniversary weekend. I'm curious about the welcome she received." Nobody spoke. The same crowd that had been so eager to mock Olivia now seemed to have collectively lost their voices. It was Richard Westfield who finally broke the silence, stepping forward with the practiced ease of someone accustomed to talking his way out of uncomfortable situations. "A regrettable misunderstanding, I'm sure," he said smoothly, extending his hand to James. "Richard Westfield, Chen Innovations stockholder, actually. Your company's performance has been remarkable this quarter." James ignored the offered hand, his attention still on the staff who had mistreated his wife. "Mr. Westfield, I believe you mentioned something about these people needing to understand their place." Richard's confident smile crumbled. His wife suddenly became intensely interested in her manicure. James continued, his voice level but with an undercurrent of steel. "I'm very interested in understanding what exactly you meant by that." Before Richard could formulate a response, the elevator doors opened, and Marcus Hamilton, the general manager, hurried across the lobby, his usually impeccable appearance slightly disheveled from the hasty summons. "Mr. Chen," he began, breathless, and already apologetic, though he didn't yet know what for. "Welcome to the Majestic Grand. How may I be of service?" James gestured to Olivia, who stood calmly beside him, her dignity undiminished despite everything that had transpired. "My wife was just explaining how your staff treated her when she arrived for our reservation." Marcus paled, looking between James, Olivia, and his suddenly terrified employees. I wasn't made aware of any issues," he stammered, shooting a desperate glance at Vanessa, who had become fascinated with a spot on the floor. "Perhaps we should discuss this somewhere more private," James suggested, though his tone made it clear this wasn't a request. Marcus nodded frantically, gesturing toward a doorway marked Private Lounge. As James placed a gentle hand on Olivia's back to guide her, he paused and looked directly at Tyler, who was trying to become invisible behind his luggage cart. "The phone," James said simply, extending his hand. Tyler reluctantly surrendered his smartphone, his face ashen. James handed it to Sarah, who tapped the screen a few times, her expression grim. "Live streaming to social media," she confirmed, quietly. "Already has 3,000 views." James nodded, unsurprised but visibly displeased. "Secure the footage," he instructed before turning back to Marcus. "I believe this conversation will need to include your entire front desk staff, security team, and anyone else who participated in today's events." The procession to the private lounge was silent and tense. Bradley, Vanessa, Diana, Tyler, and the security guards filed in like condemned prisoners. The door closed behind them, leaving the lobby buzzing with whispers as guests and remaining staff tried to process what they had witnessed. Inside the lounge, James didn't raise his voice as he systematically dismantled each person's actions, his precise questions leaving no room for excuses or deflection. Olivia sat quietly, neither gloating nor seeking revenge, her simple presence more powerful than any accusation. The next morning, the lobby had transformed. Marcus Hamilton stood ashen-faced as new management representatives in Chen Innovations blazers directed staff meetings. Bradley, Vanessa, Diana, and Tyler stood in a group near the door. Security, badges confiscated, personal belongings in boxes, termination papers in hand. They watched in stunned silence as a massive banner was unfurled across the reception area. The Majestic Grand under new management. Business headlines told the story. Tech billionaire James Chen acquires luxury hotel chain in surprise move. Majestic Grand ownership changes hands after discrimination incident. Richard Westfield stormed through the lobby, his face purple with rage. "My membership amenities have been cancelled. Do you know who I am?" The new receptionist looked up, calmly. "Yes, Mr. Westfield, your membership has been terminated as part of our new inclusivity policy." As Olivia and James crossed the lobby hand in hand, still dressed simply, they paused near the former employees. Olivia, rather than James, approached them. "I believe in second chances," she said quietly. "The Chen Foundation funds hospitality training programs for underserved communities. If you're willing to start at the bottom and learn what service really means, serving everyone with dignity regardless of appearance or wealth, there might be a place for you." 3 months later, the Majestic Grand reopened, gone with the velvet. Ropes and judgmental glances. In the lobby, a simple plaque told the story. Judge not by appearance, but by character. Olivia Chen, founder.